Hey everyone, Cool Kid here. So this is going to be a bit of a different thing. I've been thinking about doing these sort of like production commentary videos for members for a while now, where I'd like watch over my older videos and talk about them, what it was like making them and stuff like that. So now that I decided to finally get off my ass and do it, there's a few things that you'll probably notice right off the bat. First being this little avatar that I've got, which was something Rose helped me make as always. Shout out to the wonderful ring around me for putting up with my antics with these things. But I realized as I was going to be watching my own videos that it would probably be kind of hard to tell if the video me was talking or if like present me was talking. So I got these there was an old still of the original profile picture with its mouth closed that she had originally drawn, and so we dug those up and she like shaded it and did a sort of reshade of the modern one as well. So this is the Cool Kid with RTX enabled edition essentially. But so for more recent videos, I want to go through like the actual timeline, like in my editing software to talk about stuff. But for those of you who don't know, a lot of my catalog, I think it's everything up before Weird and Obscure Stuff Volume 7 or 8, was made on a laptop that ended up dying on me. So I don't have access to the original project files for those anymore. So we won't be able to go through the timelines for a lot of my older videos, but I wanted to start with the oldest ones and then work my way forward just so that it would be, more chronological, I guess. So obviously we're starting with the one that is the reason my channel even exists, that being the Iceberg. I want to preface now this video is actually hard for me to watch. Like the secondhand embarrassment I experience from watching it is very intense. I know a lot of people really like this video and it crossed 1 million views, I think sometime last year, which is pretty nuts. But I can't deny that I think that it's not very good. Oh, for fuck's sake. Sorry about that sound effect. I have a thing that notifies me when I receive emails. Yeah, I I should probably mention this is going to be much less edited, if at all. So some weird stuff might slip through. My apologies for that, but I wanted it to be more off the cuff. I feel like it would be more fun to do that way. But like I said, so for future videos, I want this to have more structure and have more assets and stuff from the original production at the ready. And this video was made 4 years ago, so a lot of this is going to probably just kind of come back to me as we're watching it. But let me know what you think of this kind of thing, if I should do it more, if I should do it less, if I should delete my YouTube channel, all that kind of stuff. But we'll go ahead and get into this, and I'm gonna have to do my best to not bitch every 3 seconds about how awful this video is. Before we start, I have a bunch of exposition stuff to get through, so if you're just here for the Iceberg, you can click on the timestamp on screen now. I want to start by The giving a huge microphone. thank you to Reddit users Mr. Okay, we're 9 seconds in, and I have to say something about this. The microphone quality in this video bothers me a lot, as does my vocal performance. It gets kind of better over time, because as I was doing the voiceover, like I sort of got progressively more energetic because I hadn't done anything like this before. I think I was 19 when I made this video. Yeah, I was 19 when I made this video. So a lot of it was the first time I ever did something like this. I it's as well like as we watch through the older videos especially you'll notice this that I do a lot of on-screen corrections, and I try to do those less now. Like, sometimes I still have to, because it's just like I can't be asked to redo a voiceover for something. But there's a lot of on-screen corrections for things, and the reason for that is kind of stupid. I was borrowing my brother's microphone at the time. I didn't have one good enough to do this kind of thing. I was using my headset microphone, so I was borrowing his microphone. So I had a very limited window to actually record things, and so if I ever had to correct something, I couldn't just go borrow his microphone again a lot of the time because he was using it. So I just ended up putting an on-screen correction. And with my inability to make my audio sound good, like it's still an ongoing battle, right, to make my microphone not sound like shit in my videos. But especially at this time, I didn't know a fucking thing about it, and it shows. Expert and Dim Dawn Official for helping out with this project. Mr. Expert was the creator of the original Iceberg, and I was given permission by him to expand on it, and he also gave me explanations to a bunch of his original entries that I didn't understand. And Dim Dawn Official was a user who left a bunch of really great suggestions in the comments of the original Iceberg, and so I contacted him, and he was able to help me with a lot of the entries he left that I didn't understand. Minor thing, Dim Dawn Official, I'm almost positive, is actually a girl. Someone pointed this out to me like a year after the Iceberg came out, and I just didn't realize at the time that I was talking about this. Nowadays, I try to use gender neutral terms when referring to people I don't know the gender of because of this mistake. Another disclaimer here, there are going to be spoilers for Dark Sector and pretty much every single major Warframe quest, so if you don't want any of that spoiled, this is not the place for you. This video, like all the other Iceberg, little edits like this, like where these things spin on screen, I still try and replicate this sometimes, but I'm pretty sure this whole video was accidentally produced in 30 FPS, so it looks kind of bad. Don't want any of that spoiled, this is not the place for you. This video, like all the other Iceberg ones, were inspired by Mishkaz's original video on the Super Mario 64 Iceberg, which I highly recommend you watch first. A lot of the gags in this are going to make a lot more sense if you've experienced that video first, and even if you haven't played Super Mario 64, the video is still fantastic, and I recommend you give it a watch. Also, I was actually the person who created this Iceberg, unlike most Iceberg coverage videos, but about half of these suggestions come from other players, so not all of this is just going to be me explaining my own jokes. And lastly, I am going to swear a ton, because that's just how I am, so I'm really sorry if that bothers you. Okay, God, I'm pausing the video a lot, I feel like. So, the language warning in this one was, I don't remember even why I originally implemented it, but I kind of stopped doing that, and it's funny because there's this one person, who comments on my videos pretty regularly, telling me to watch my language, and I think that shit is hilarious. Like, I get people who have a problem with that kind of thing, and it's not like I'm trying to be a dick. It's just that, like, that's just how I talk, right? And I'm not going to change the way I talk, because I feel like that's just kind of inauthentic. But getting those comments always made me laugh, because it'd just be like, watch your mouth with a timestamp of whenever I would, like, say the word fuck, and I thought that was really funny. So, minor side tangent. Alright, now that that's all out of the way, let's get into what you actually are here for. This video was also an excuse to use a lot of Metroid music. Released on March 25th, 2008, Dark Sector was Digital Extreme's first release and in many ways a precursor to Warframe. The game revolves around Hayden Tenno, a CIA cleanup man investigating a rogue agent in the fictional country of Lasria at the end of the Cold War. I've told this story on stream, but I have to real quick. Hayden Tenno, the protagonist here of Dark Sector, it's not like secret knowledge. My first name also just happens to be Hayden by pure coincidence. So in the Tenno relays, I think this is specifically in Orcus and Chronia because the other ones have been changed, but you can find text around the relays in the Tenno script, like translatable language, which is actually an entry later on this Iceberg. But so one of the things says Hayden Tenno because it's it's a reference to the Dark Sector protagonist. So when I was like 14 years old and I first started playing Warframe, I didn't know about Dark Sector, and I found out that the Tenno bet was actually translatable. And so you can imagine my shock as like a middle schooler when the first thing I translate just so happens to be the thing that says Hayden Tenno, and I'm like, what the fuck? How do they know? So again, I feel like this video is going to end up being 3 hours long, and most of it's just going to be random side tangents like this. But that memory still lives with me because I thought it was pretty funny in hindsight. Many elements of Warframe, such as the Technocide infestation, the glaive, and the Tenno namesake, come from Dark Sector. In fact, pre-release demos imply that at one point, Warframe and Dark Sector were actually going to be the same game. This is going to come up a bunch throughout the Iceberg, so consider this entry a primer of sorts. Primer Warframe reference? A very popular animated Warframe video by YouTube animation channel Mashed. The video follows the story of a new player working his way through Warframe, filled with a bunch of community memes and fun references. This video's success was so great, in fact, that in-game glyphs were made using frames from the video itself, and released into Warframe's in-game market. This might be inaccurate. I think someone has told me that Mash was actually commissioned to make the video, but I don't know if that's true, because I feel like so many of the in-jokes and stuff make it very obvious that the people at Mashed actually played the game. So this is like a chicken or the egg situation. I don't actually know if the glyphs were made because of the video's success, or if they were made because DE commissioned the video. I'm admittedly not entirely sure. You can find a link to this video in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. I sound like I'm falling asleep. A mysterious core element of Warframe's story, the Man in the Wall is considered to be a malevolent entity and a physical embodiment of the power that
Dude,
resides
holy
within the...
shit. Not only, I'm looking at this footage now, I think I had to use someone else's footage for the Chains of Hera because Quest Replay wasn't in the game yet, and you can see in the bottom right, oh, okay, well, I'm blocking it, but this is Ember's old kit. This was pre-rework Ember.
Void. He is first encountered during the quest The War Within, but plays a much larger role in the quest Chains of Hera. He also makes several appearances during or after certain story quests beyond this point. He'll show up a few more times throughout the course of this Iceberg, so just keep him as a concept in the back of your mind for now.
Chains of Hera was not scary. I'm sorry, I just have to get on my soapbox for a second. If any of you watching right now were scared by that quest, I'm sorry, but you're no, I'm not gonna be mean. Never mind. You're entitled to your own opinion.
Digital Extremes community manager Rebecca Ford's Reddit account username.
He was still community manager at this time too. Yeah, damn, because that was in 2022. Weird to think about that. This video's so old.
I'm just gonna call it Leu, fuck it. Leu is the parent company to Digital Extremes. I couldn't find anything about the original buyout of DE by Leu, but recently Leu has been acquired by Chinese gaming monolith Tencent for an estimated $1.6 billion. So,
What the
that's
fuck?
something.
I didn't remember making that. The like fucking Super Smash Brothers with the Chinese. Like, did you hear that?
Estimated 1.
Hold on.
But recently Leu has been acquired by Chinese gaming monolith Tencent for an estimated $1.6 billion.
Dude, that was low-key racist as hell. What the fuck? I don't remember making that.
So, that's something.
Oh.
Many Warframes are released with signature weapons matching their style. When wielded by the Warframe it was released alongside, many signature weapons gained special bonuses, such as Larkspur's increased ammo capacity when wielded by Hildred, or Fulman's increased mode swap speed when wielded by Wisp. Unfortunately, not all signature weapons possess these abilities, such as Hystrix, Scourge, and Oxani, to name a few.
There's someone in the comments of this video that left a very lengthy comment. They left multiple comments, actually, getting mad at me for pronouncing Hystrix as Hystrix, among, like, a few other things, right? And I remember I replied to their comment at one point, uh, like, more or less just kind of, like, casually apologizing for misspeaking, and they left another lengthy reply about how, like, they thought it was unacceptable that I would mispronounce words because ultimately what I'm selling to people is my voice, and I never replied to that comment after that point because I just felt like it wasn't really pertinent to, like, I could have, I just didn't care enough, I guess. But I remember thinking to myself after that, I was like, selling my voice? This video's free. Like, you didn't pay for anything. And I still think about that comment sometimes, because, like, I do think it helped me realize that I needed to be more careful about my pronunciation of certain words. Though Revenant's Ultimate and Weird and Obscure stuff too was like the thing that I fucked that one up so bad. I had to learn my lesson. But it was just like, what the hell is bro talking about? I'm not selling you anything.
After Update 10, the Grineer faction was given its own language, and among the new unique words added was the term Clem. The phrase
Get Clem
was interpreted by many players as the Grineer saying Get Clem, evolving into a meme about who this Clem character even was. December of that same year, artist Data Reaper posted the comic The Chronicles of Clem, a Grineer Lancer who wanted to become a Tenno. The comic grew in popularity, and eventually Digital Extremes introduced Clem as a character in-game with the quest A Man of Few Words in 2015.
This
Weapon,
footage
or do you need to take one?
This footage quality is so fucking bad. I have this at the 1080p. It doesn't matter.
There you go. But be careful, you will be blowing yourself up with that.
Since then, he's grown even more in notoriety and become one of the community's most popular memes. Honestly, if you spent even like 3 minutes in region chat, I don't even need to explain this one to you.
Awful to say, or just like think about too, that Data Reaper's, he was alive at the time that this video was made, and he's not anymore. I hope his family's doing okay. When was that? That was a few years ago now. Like, I know that obviously, like, that kind of thing doesn't pass easily. It doesn't pass ever, really, I imagine, but it's
I don't know, very depressing to think about, considering how much of an influential figure Data Reaper was. Because even beyond Clem, he also made Cronin, and I think he was the one who submitted. It was either Silva and Aegis or Jack Kusar. One of those two weapons was also submitted by Data Reaper. A little gameplay trick. Players can use the dodge/roll function to avoid certain knockdowns. Tusk Thumper and Grenier Heavy Gunner slams and Corpus Laser barricades, to name a couple of them. As a bonus,
The way I say the word barricades.
Grenier Heavy Gunner slams and Corpus Laser barricades, to name a couple of them. As a bonus, you can also slide when falling from a great height to avoid the hard landing animation.
It's another funny thing that happened recently in regards to this. I know I said I was going to talk about the production of this video, and I've brought up basically nothing about it yet, but someone left a comment on a recent video. I think it was actually the original DE Doesn't Understand Overguard, saying something to the effect of, like, how am I supposed to intuit that I should roll through an Arson Xmas Fire Blast? And I remember, like, I was thinking to myself, like, because you can roll through every other knockdown in the game? I don't know, maybe he just wasn't an Iceberg watcher.
Another popular community meme, this one revolves around the exhaustingly long monologue spouted by the corrupted Vor mini-boss every single fucking time he spawns into a Void mission. It is so long that he often keeps speaking it, even...
Dude, I'm just realizing now how old this video is. This was before even Warframe Revised, wasn't it? Maybe, no, it was just after.
He spawns into a Void
Look at this, the old damage numbers and the old corrosive icon.
mission. It is so long that he often keeps speaking it, even after he's dead, making it virtually unavoidable. There was a minor spin-off of this in Natah's monologue from the Ropalolis mission, but it never gained nearly as much traction as Vor's legendary speech.
I still think it's lame as hell that the Duviri one is interrupted by dying. I feel like DE kind of missed the point of the joke by allowing that to happen.
When joining a social space in Warframe, you are often prompted to select from one of many given instances of said social space. This is to avoid any single individual space from getting too crowded. These instances can go on virtually infinitely, and shortly after the release of the Fortuna update, the massive influx of players caused the instance Fortuna 69 to generate. This instance was then held open through many hotfixes, not being allowed to close as players traded out places during updates to make sure it remained open. There is so much meme culture revolving around Fortuna 69 that I can't explain it here, I just don't have the time.
I wonder if the Discord link even still functions. Not even just that, but like, the new war update collapsed this community, because Nitro was actually very involved in it back during its prime, and the release of the new war and the fact that you couldn't go back after you completed the quest, unless you have, like... The weird thing about old Fortuna and the old planes, it's authoritative based on who the host of your squad is. So if the host is someone who hasn't done the new war, he'll go back to the good versions of the open worlds. And if the host is someone who has done the new war, then you're stuck with the shitty ones. So Fortuna 69, because obviously hardcore players of the game have to do the new war, it's a major progression point. Now, like at the time, this wasn't the case, but now there are 3 locations locked behind it, right? The Zariman, Labs, and Holvania. So as far as I've heard, this community kind of just collapsed after the new war came out, and it's never really been the same.
But just know it was the funny sex number instance of Fortuna that ended up becoming much bigger than it was supposed to. There are spin-offs of this in Necrolus 69 and Cetus 69, but none of them are as well known and storied as Fortuna 69.
The amount of times you can hear me... God, this video is going to be fucking 4 hours long with the rate I'm pausing it at. The amount of times you can hear me inhale bothers me.
After the release of Dark Sector, Digital Extremes was on the verge of bankruptcy. They approached a bunch of different game publishers with their concept of a free-to-play Space Ninja game titled Warframe, but they were universally turned down. In a bit of desperation, Digital Extremes decided to self-publish the game, releasing it into closed beta on October 24, 2012. The rest, of course, is history. But if you want a more in-depth look at Warframe's history, a link to the GameSpot documentary will be in the description box.
The GameSpot documentary is actually super interesting. I highly recommend watching it if you haven't.
Whenever the game receives an update or hotfix, it is signaled through the in-game chat by the enigmatic red text.
Run by D.E. Darrell, according to community manager Rebecca Ford, Red Text is known for making quips and giving various previews as to what is showing up in the upcoming update or hotfix. This is a multifaceted story like Fortuna 69 with things like the cult of Red Text, but that's beyond the scope of my explanation for this video.
I really should have explained that.
With the launch of Operation Ambulus Reborn on May 4th, 2017, an update trailer was released to serve as a preface for the story of the new operation. During this trailer, the operation's antagonist, Frode Beck, uttered these famous words.
Gross. Profit. Profit.
Once again, the community took this phrase and ran with it, but by now that shouldn't be all that surprising.
I fuck heavy with the aesthetic of Ambulus Reborn.
While the normal level cap for a given Warframe companion or weapon is only 30, certain weapons can level all the way up to level 40, along with the Necromex. This is achieved by placing 5 Forma on these items, as each Forma increases the max level by 2, up to a maximum of 10 extra levels of 5 Forma. Items affected by this include the Paracesis, the Kuvalich weapons, and the Necromex.
This was even before Tenet weapons, dude, damn.
During the game's time in closed beta, a Founders Bundle was offered for players who wanted to monetarily support the game during its early development. This bundle infamously included Excalibur Prime, Skana Prime, and the Leto Prime, all of which are now unobtainable as they are legally locked behind the Founders Bundle. These bundles were divided into tiers, with the Master tier granting access to the Design Council forum, and the Grandmaster tier including both Design Council access and a tribute in the Tenno Relays that displays the names of all Grandmasters. This program was ended on November 1st of 2013.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, a lot of people that own Excalibur Prime are really, like, proudy about it, and I think it's kind of funny, because it's like, yeah, I really should have bought the Founders Pack for Warframe in 2013 instead of being 11. Like, plenty of people who are fairly dedicated to the game just started after the Founders Pack was gone. It doesn't make you better than anyone else that you happened to play the game at that time. Like, because Excalibur Prime players are either, like, really cool or really, really insufferable. It just kind of depends. I also think it's very, like, bizarre that Excalibur Prime has haunted this game for the better part of 10 years, right? And then after all of this obvious, issue that is the Founders Bundle and exclusive content to it, causing friction for a long time of players wanting items they can't obtain anymore, DE, for the 10-year anniversary, makes the same fucking mistake with the Rhino and Mag heirloom bundles. And I think that was such an unbelievably dumb decision, I have no idea how it even happened. Like, you'd think they would have learned something from this, but I guess not.
Standing for Potent Orokin Technical Augmentation and Tactical Offensive Device, the potato is a reference to a community meme involving the Orokin Reactor and Orokin Catalyst items. Long story short, they look like potatoes.
Well said, past cool kid. This theme Hydro Station from AM2R, my friends and I still jokingly call this the Iceberg music.
Throughout Warframe, the game's many different factions are shown speaking their own languages and using their own alphabets. While this may just seem like gibberish at first, these languages are all actually just modifications of the English language,
That's the rail tractor room.
with the alphabets being modifications made to the Latin alphabet. Using the keys shown on screen, you can actually translate the text and quotes
It's so
found
bright.
in-game, even using the language for yourself if you're dedicated enough to learn such. A lot of these languages can be quite cumbersome to actually speak, however, so keep that in mind. Also, while certain languages may modify the letters in a word when spoken, they don't in writing, which is worth noting. Released with Operation the Pacifism Defect on March 2nd, 2017, the Ignis Wraith is a modified version of the Ignis Flamethrower, featuring better critical chance, status chance, and magazine size. In addition to being given to players who participated in the event, the research for the weapon's blueprint was given to the top 10% of scoring clans at the end of the event. Likewise, many of these clans will simply give Ignis Wraith blueprints away for free to newer players, as they have an endless supply of them. The Warframe subreddit often has announcements from these clans involving when they give these blueprints out, so keep an eye out there if you want one.
There was a problem for a long time. I'm surprised they didn't talk about it, actually.
where certain clans with the Ignis Wraith would sell them for very cheap. It was like 5 or 10 platinum, but people still considered it a scam because they were given away for free by a lot of other veteran clans. And it was such a constant point of friction that eventually DE just gave every clan access to the Ignis Wraith blueprint. It's a little weird seeing the Ignis and its better variant in the clan by default, but I think it was ultimately for the best. Also, minor side note about the Ignis Wraith, that weapon was never really that good. Like, it's not like it's a bad weapon, I just find it weird how popular it was for how long, because I really don't think it was ever all that, if you ask me. But, it is what it is. During the Spirits in Black event in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, the Lotus made a surprise appearance as an obtainable primary spirit from the event. She was acquired after defeating a modified Bayonetta on the Spirit board, and could be fed Spirit snacks to upgrade into the Spirit Nata. As far as I'm aware, she hasn't been made obtainable since the event concluded. So, two things. One, she is actually obtainable, just very rarely. Someone in the comments pointed that out to me. And two, she's a fucking 3-star when leveled up, so she's unironically worthless, which is really sad. Which sucks because I missed it. This is going to be kind of technical, so strap yourselves in. Prior to the Warframe Revised Part 1 update, status effect chance had a different method of being handled by the game. During this time, a 100% status chance was the cap, causing each shot to deal a guaranteed status effect chosen from the elements present on the weapon, with the elements that make up more of the weapon's overall damage being favored when choosing a status effect to apply to an enemy. That's still accurate. Hey all, dumbass here. Originally in this segment of the script, I was going to talk about old shotgun status, but I realized when editing this video that I got all of my math completely fucking wrong. Not only that, beam weapons could actually go above 100% status back in the day, so I need to cover that now too. Quick notes before we start though, the info in this part comes from Darth Muffin and the Warframe wiki, so shout out to both of them. First, for beam weapons, this entry is actually how I met Darth Muffin. He got a copyright, automatic, YouTube system, copyright system notice that my video contained his footage, which is how he found it. Over 100% status chance was actually obtainable, as beam weapons dealt 4 ticks of damage per second, and the status chance was simply a chance for a tick in a given second to proc the status. So if you had 100% status chance, one of the 4 ticks would proc, 200% status chance, 2 of the 4 ticks, and so on. I'll leave a link to Darth Muffin's video in the description, which should also be on screen now, where he talks about this subject as well as how fire rate and multi-shot affect it. For shotguns, the formula on screen here was used to calculate status. To put it simply, the arsenal display for status effects was simply a calculation of the chance for at least one of the pellets in a shot to proc status. On screen, I'll also show a breakdown of some examples of this system. Very important to note that if you hit a 100% status chance, then it would kind of wrap around and all of your shots would have a 100% status chance. I know that's shown in the breakdown, but I think it's very important to note because it was a big part of what made status shotgun so powerful. This video by Porphy shows him just completely fucking deleting a heavy gunner with the Strun Wraith because of how strong this was with corrosive at the time. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and pick back up from the original script now, as the end of it has some valid info about the current state of the game. As a quick primer, I'm talking about how shotgun status got buffed with Warframe Revised in the remainder of the old script. These days, shotguns still have their status chance divided amongst their pellets, but all shotguns have their base status chance tripled to compensate for the fact that 100% status chance is no longer attainable on each pellet. This is also now more clearly stated in the Arsenal UI. That's not entirely accurate. Exergis can do it, which I forgot about when I made this. I'll admit that I have become a much better Warframe player because of YouTube. I've learned a lot because of doing stuff for the channel. And so there's a lot of stuff in this video that I say that's just kind of not entirely accurate because I just didn't know at the time. I think overall, though, that change in Warframe Revised was an important update, or a very good update, and a very important update for a lot of reasons. So that was one of the best changes they made. The Warframe Gara possesses an ability called Splinter Storm, which shatters the glass on her body into a protective aura that grants 90% damage reduction and damages nearby enemies. If you cast Gara's ultimate, Mass Vitrify, the duration of Splinter Storm is refreshed to its maximum. If you then shatter the vitrification ring with Gara's first ability, Shattered Lash, bonus damage is applied to Splinter Storm equal to 50% of the ring's explosion damage. This damage effectively stacks infinitely so long as you have the energy and the willpower, meaning that with enough effort you can have an aura surrounding Gara that deals 1,000,000 damage per tick, shredding almost anything she touches instantly. It isn't all good though, as falling off the map, falling into water, or having a Nullifier or Scrambus aura touch Gara will dispel Splinter Storm and remove all of Gara's damage stacks. Simply forgetting to refresh the ability with Mass Vitrify will also remove all stacks of damage.
It's funny, when this entry was first added to the Iceberg, it was actually before the UI element. Like, if I back up a little bit, no. Why is it that... Okay.
It isn't all good.
The UI element down here, I'm blocking it again. Oh, for fuck's sake. People who play Gara know what I'm talking about. You can kind of see it behind me, the UI element here. This entry was added before that existed, which is part of why it was on the Iceberg, because it was kind of a hidden mechanic. But nowadays, it's much more explained that it's actually a thing that happens. I also didn't know at the time that that Shattered Lash stat sticks boosted the damage of the ring explosion, which would also boost the damage of your 2 aura. So, like, honestly, reaching 1,000,000 damage on Shattered Lash isn't hard. Even at the time that I made this, it wasn't hard. I just didn't know how it worked.
Kuva Lich enemies have a small chance to spawn with a quirk when generated by the player. These apply small traits to the Lich, from simple dialogue changes like with Bloodhound to gameplay affecting quirks like Deserter or Paranoid. A full list of these quirks and their effect will be on screen now, and you can find them on the Warframe wiki article concerning the Kuva Lich.
Honestly, I wish that system was utilized more. I really like quirks and wish that they were a more integral part of the adversary system.
The Nova Warframe's ultimate ability, Molecular Prime, normally slows enemies in its effective area while increasing their susceptibility to damage and causing them to explode on death. However, below 70% power strength, enemies affected by Molecular Prime actually speed up. This can be useful for increasing the speed at which certain mission types are completed, and is also just really funny to watch. Interestingly, at 70% power strength exactly, Molecular Prime neither speeds up nor slows down enemies, leading to a neutral Nova.
It's kind of a time capsule entry, considering that ever since Kome and the Five Fates, the speed and slow thing is just part of Nova's 4. But even beyond that, Neutral Nova's not a thing anymore. So far as I'm aware, you can't play Neutral Nova, which was actually a strategy I had learned about while making this video. I think someone mentioned it in the comments or something. I had no idea until I started making this back in the day that you could even do that.
This entry refers to 2 special mods exclusive to the Elite Sanctuary Onslaught game mode. They provide no gameplay benefits, but instead cause fun effects on enemies hit by the weapon they are equipped on. These 2 mods, as of the
That's not even accurate, they're both Warframe mods.
release of this video, are Peculiar Bloom, which causes flowers to grow on enemies when they suffer a critical hit, and Peculiar Growth, which causes an enemy's body parts to be inflated for 6 seconds after taking damage. There was also a third Peculiar mod shown off on a developer stream from the game's creative director.
I have still not been able to find the footage of this, even all these years later. I remember so vividly, I'll describe it in a second, but I remember so vividly that this mod exists, I cannot find footage for it.
DE Steve, which caused comic book text to appear whenever enemies were damaged. As of the recording of this video, it has not made it into the game, and nothing has been heard of it since this developer livestream. Removed with Update 22.14, Trials, also known as Raids, were 8-player missions featuring a greater focus on puzzles, teamwork, and team composition than normal missions. Unique obstacles and challenges combined
The bitrate is so bad. This video's production quality is so ass, dude.
with high enemy levels made these missions much more difficult than the rest of the standard game. The 3 trials present in the game before their removal were the Law of Retribution, where players hunted down Fae Heck, the Jordis Verdict, where players attempted to hunt down a Redux Jordis Golem, and the Law of Retribution Nightmare, which was a modified version of the Law of Retribution where new mechanics dialed up the challenge. After their removal, their chief rewards, Arcanes, were moved into the Eidolon loot pool. I never got to play any raids myself while they were around, but a very large portion of the community has been rallying for their return. DE has said that raids are planned to return at some point, but beyond that, the status of their development is currently unknown. It's funny that now we have an answer for this, which is that raids are not coming back according to Rebecca, and honestly, good. I don't think raids should come back personally. Like, my logic for that's pretty simple. I don't think there should be content in Warframe you can't do by yourself. Because you look at, like, Destiny, right? Destiny has a problem where a lot of its player base doesn't do end game content. Like, I think Phoenix told me that like 70% of the player base has never completed a raid because it's difficult finding 5 other people to do that activity with. And Warframe raids were eight people in total, so you need 7 other people to do it with. So personally, I'm glad that they're gone, and I hope they don't come back. In the reactor sabotage game type, the player must complete a series of objectives to destroy the reactor of the ship and escape whilst the ship is falling apart. What a lot of players don't know, however, is that you can actually change the hazard you have to avoid at the end of the mission, as well as how the reactor melts down, by using the fuel and coolant cells provided at the end of the vault section. By placing the fuel cell in the reactor, the player will have to avoid fire hazards at the end of the mission and must destroy the reactor by breaking fuel injectors present on it. By inserting the coolant cell into the reactor, the player must defend 4 coolant pipes to break the reactor, and then must avoid ice hazards on their way to extraction. Lastly, if the fuel cell is placed in the coolant system, the player must defend a console to destroy the reactor, and will then have to dodge magnetic bubbles that spawn throughout the map as they attempt escape. There are also a lot of sabotage mission types that don't involve these steps at all, like Mars, Europa, and the Void, but that's more of a footnote than something particularly important to this entry. I want to bring up that footnote that I had, this on screen. I did repurpose this entry for weird and obscure stuff later down the line, but even beyond that, the Deadlock Protocol came out while I was making this video, because I shit you not, the Iceberg took me 5 months in total, from like actually making the video itself to like making the Iceberg, writing it, doing the voiceover. It took me about 5 months all told, which is why when people ask me like, cool kid, do you want it, like, would you ever do a sequel to the Iceberg? The answer currently is probably not, and that's for 2 reasons. One, I just don't really want to, because I don't feel like it would be fun to do a second go around on a video like this. But also beyond that, because it would be so much work, because the original took so much effort. And like, at the time I had no expectations for myself and no expectations from my audience, right? I made this purely for fun. But now that I like make content more regularly, I feel like it just isn't what I want to do, and I feel like even if my audience would want to watch it, it would push everything back so much in terms of development timeline that I feel like it just wouldn't be worth it. In Warframe, certain mods are what we call set mods. This means that the more mods you have equipped from a certain set, the stronger the mod's set bonus will be. Warframe has many sets, such as the Vigilante, Gladiator, and Arrow sets, with mods spanning across Warframes, weapons, and companions. However, a well-known trick with these mods is that you can bolster the set bonus by placing mods from a given set onto the weapon under Sentinel. This is the most popular with the aforementioned Vigilante set, as you can place 4 of the set's mods onto your Sentinel's weapons and receive a whopping 20% enhanced critical chance. You don't even have to max out these 4 mods in order to gain the full benefit from the mod set bonus. The Gladiator set can also be used to grant critical chance with combo counter for melee-focused builds, but only Helios' Deconstructor and its prime equivalent can utilize these melee mods. And because only Helios can equip the Deconstructor, that means that you must run Helios or Helios Prime in order to utilize this tactic. Yeah, that got removed. That's not a thing anymore. It's really sad too, because it was kind of niche, but I think you can, if memory serves, you can still stat stick Vigilante, but you can't with Gladiator anymore. Prior to Exalted Weapon modding being added into the game, players would kit out specially formulated melee weapons to be used to modify the stats of their Exalted abilities. You see, before Exalted modding, these abilities would simply inherit the mods from the equipped weapon in the corresponding slot. That build was ass. So melee for Excalibur and Valkyr, secondary for Mesa, and so on. Even though this mechanic was removed for these Exalted weapons, stat sticks are still very much in the game for certain abilities that don't technically count as Exalted. These abilities still inherit melee mods, and include Gara's Shattered Lash, Korra's Whipclaw, and Atlas's Landslide, among others. It's funny seeing that I talk about this entry, like, well, now, because stat sticks just got removed,
but also B, because like I said earlier, I didn't know that stat sticking Gara's 1 increased the explosion damage for, like, your 2's Touch of Death. So it's funny that this is in the same video where I didn't realize that was a mechanic and didn't realize I could achieve my, 1 million damage way faster if I just knew how the fucking game worked. After installing the Helminth segment into your orbiter and naming said Helminth, you can actually approach the wall mouth and get an interact prompt, which can cause one of 4 scenarios. If you have a Kavad or Vulpaphyla companion on the ship, the Helminth will lean towards them and either give them kisses or briefly inhale them before spitting them back out. If you have a Kubro or Predacite active, the companion will play and bark in front of the Helminth, which will cause the Helminth to eventually sneeze as an allergic reaction. Finally, if you have the domestic carrion drone from the Deimos supporter pack, interacting with the Helminth cause the drone to jump into its mouth and give it a routine dental cleaning. It's funny, a lot of people left comments saying this shouldn't have been a bonus entry, this was too important, and you know what, fair enough. Dude, this... Wow, red crits being an entry on this Iceberg dates this so hard. If the player surpasses 100% critical chance, they will guarantee a critical hit with every weapon strike, and any percent chance overflow will be converted into a chance for an orange crit that deals double the crit multiplier in damage. Beyond 200% critical chance, all critical hits will be at least orange, with overflow percentages being converted into red crits, and so on and so forth. At 300% and beyond, critical hits will still appear red, but will have their critical multiplier damage increased accordingly. Previously, any crit beyond 100% was red, but as critical mods grew larger in number, the red crit was moved and the orange crit was added to aid with visual clarity. Watching this footage, it's so ancient. It's so weird watching like this footage and being like, wow, this video is only 4 years old, and yet this game looks like I feel like I'm watching footage from fucking 2017. The Limbo Warframe possesses an ability called Stasis, which causes all enemies within his rift plane to stop moving, also halting enemy projectiles. In the past, this ability also halted allied projectiles, which while really cool, really hurt Limbo in team play, as he really just trolled the shit out of his teammates whenever Stasis was active. While I will always miss creating miniature suns with the old Stasis, I think this was a change most people can agree was definitely needed. It's funny because Limbo still just trolls people with stasis. That never actually changed. This entry refers to the Helminth cyst, which is a virus that can be spread to players via other infected players. It causes a cyst to grow on the neck of the affected Warframe over the course of 7 days, and at full growth it can be used in the creation of the Helminth Charger Companion. While the cyst can now be removed in the Helminth Infirmary as soon as it's visible, previously one had to wait for the full 7 days before the cyst could be removed. From this spawned the player nickname Space AIDS, which due to its lingering cosmetic effects on the player, was a far from desirable thing to catch, especially if you already had a Helminth Charger. Because it can be removed pretty much instantly these days though, it's not as big of a deal. I just realized, is this footage in the old orbiter? I'll have to keep an eye out for that. More AM2R. Prior to his rework, the Warframe Excalibur didn't have the Exalted Blade ability. Instead, his ultimate was Radial Javelin, and in his third slot was an ability called Super Jump. It would cause Excalibur to jump 3 times higher than normal while stunning nearby enemies. With the advent of Parkour 2.0, Super Jump became obsolete and was removed. Rebecca did say on a dev short, I think it was, that they are planning on bringing it back as a joke Helminth ability, which I am in full support of. Please do that. During Parkour 1.0's time as the game's mobility system, this melee tech was done to increase the movement speed of players. It was done by slide attacking while in the air, with high attack speed weapons like dual Zorans being popular as they could increase the number of... This is one of those... hold on. This is one of those on-screen corrections because I couldn't re-record that I was talking about. The one earlier in the status section was hard enough to fit into the video that it's just like, you know what? I'm just going to put some text on screen and hope that's good enough.
speed weapons like dual Zorans being popular as they could increase the number of copters in a single jump. With the addition of Parkour 2.0, this tech was rendered obsolete by the bullet jump mechanic and was removed.
Coptering wasn't even really removed, it was just made worse. And now we have Dual Zoran Prime, which has the fun coptering passive, so I think it was overall better for the game.
First unveiled at TennoCon 2017, Be the Stalker, better known as Stalker Mode, is a game mode wherein the player gets to play as the pre-second Dream Stalker and hunt down players who have a Stalker mark. This game type features a ton of little cool things like being in Hunhouse Lair instead of the Orbiter, saying acquiring targets instead of searching for match, and other things of that nature. While DE has said that this mode is planned to be released to the public in the future, it is as of now limited to its occasional use on developer livestreams.
Yeah, it's funny that we don't really, this kind of came out with Belly of the Beast, where you could, play as the Stalker and help people, but in this, PvP iteration, yeah, this just kind of completely fell off the face of the planet, like many things in this game's development history, honestly.
This entry actually means two different things depending on how you interpret it. In a modern context, it refers to how certain Grineer units can speak perfect English. These include the Boss Grineer, the Grineer Queens, Grineer Pilots and Railjack, Kuvaliches, and the Grineer Rail Operator on the Orbiter Radio. A leading theory regarding this is that these Grineer are more intelligent than the average Grineer, and thus have learned the language using this superior intellect, although for what purpose is largely unknown. The second thing this refers to is that, prior to Update 10, the Grineer had no unique language, instead speaking English. They had very few lines, however, leading to their dialogue being very repetitive and meme to all hell. This will be important again later, so keep these old English-speaking Grineer in the back of your mind, with the Man in the Wall, Parkour 1.0, and whatever else I end up telling you to put there by the end of this video.
It named Finger.
After completing the quest Rising Tide, the player gains access to their own Old War-era ship known as a Railjack. These ships are powered by a reliquary drive, a paradoxical piece of technology that is linked to the powers of the Void. Interacting with the drive can yield dialogue from both the Man in the Wall and Cephalon Psi, and rarely when approaching the drive, a giant severed finger can
This isn't as rare as I thought it was, especially not anymore.
be seen floating within. This is a reference to the story of Albrecht Entrati and his first expedition into the Void, wherein he severed the fingers of the Man in the Wall after closing his Void gateway and studied said fingers to produce various Void-related technologies. Like a bunch of other stuff that I've mentioned already on this Iceberg, we'll talk about Albrecht Entrati later.
It's weird to think, because Albrecht's story was a much more, on the down low kind of thing when this video came out, right? Heart of Deimos was relatively new. I think this was start of 2021 when this released. So, Heart of Deimos was relatively new at the time. So, this kind of information was, we didn't really know much about Albrecht, though obviously now he's a major character.
Originally intended to be released in Update 25.7's Disruption expansion, the Echoes of Umbra are an unreleased item that could be temporarily installed on any Warframe to make it fight autonomously when the player enters Operator form, like Umbra does. This was never added, however, and the original items meant to craft it, somatic fibers, ended up being used in the construction of the Lua lens, which in turn became the unique offering from Lua's Disruption node. This entry references a GIF released by DE Rebecca shortly after the Grendel Warframe's release. Apparently, during testing of the Warframe, there was a bug that allowed him to use his Feast ability on the Lephantis boss, swallowing him whole.
Tangentially related, that there's a bug, I think it might still be in the game, where if you're rad procced as Grendel, you can eat other people's operators, which goes pretty hard.
Compared to the version used in the West, China's version of Warframe includes a multitude of differences and even some exclusive content. These include Excalibur Umbra Prime in their Founders package, who is visually identical to Excalibur Umbra but lacks the Umbral Sentience passive and can trigger the Void Orb energy like other Prime Warframes. Carmen Penta, a variant of the Penta Grenade Launcher, Prisma Machete, a variant of the Machete Melee, and the unique Caddis, which is a staff melee weapon that focuses on status chance and electricity damage.
Fortunately, all three of these are in the game now. I believe Prisma Machete is a Barrow item. I can't quite remember. I think Caddis might just be from the market, and then Carmen Penta's a Railjack side objective reward, I believe.
Fortunately for us, all of these weapons are statistically pretty bad, so not much is being missed out on. Some unique cosmetics, such as the Umbra Beast Helmet, the Rhino Bronze Skin, and the Guavin Sakara Prime, are all exclusive to Warframe China as well. While using the Necromech, the player may rarely encounter a bug wherein the majority of the Necromech disappears, leaving only the core, or cob, of the Necromech remaining. This bug, to my knowledge, has been patched now, but
Hell no, it was not fixed. Dude, I still encounter this. It's always really funny, too, like seeing a mech Eximus in the labs and just freaking the fuck out because you just encountered Eximus Corn, Iowa final boss. Dude, I love that shit. I hope this never gets fixed.
it appeared on an official dev stream once, which was pretty hilarious. Another fan creation, John Prodman is a reference to a forum post by user Lissa called The Most Badass Ever in Warframe. This post depicted a lone prod crewman taking on the Forward boss in an infested invasion mission and despite all odds, surviving. The community thus dubbed the crewman John Prodman, exaggerating his accomplishments and eventually spawning a whole lore around the character. With the addition of the Index and Operation the Index Preview, John Prodman appeared as an in-game boss after lasting for 1 hour in the Endurance mode at any difficulty. Upon being defeated, he simply shrugs and teleports out of the playspace, dropping his autograph as an orbiter decoration for all players in the lobby. According to his autographed photo, Prodman is a member of Anyo Corp and is also the Corpus Employee of the Month.
The fact that I didn't get footage of that for myself makes me such a bitch. I remember when I did it for weird and obscure stuff. I should probably talk about this when I actually talk about those videos, but I did it with, I think it was Tapato and Chris. Someone else was there, but I don't know why I can't think of who it was. But that was fun. Like, being in the Index for an hour is fucking boring, but when you have people with you, it makes it more bearable.
Originally known as the Aura Kitties, the Curia are secret map scannables that appear at a variety of locations throughout the game's tile sets. Scanning a Curia will unlock one line of a poem regarding the origins of the Grineer Queens, with there being 48 Curia in total. These little guys served as a precursor to the game's current Cephalon fragment system, and can still be found and collected for some various rewards. At 50% Curia found, you get the Curia emblem, at 75% you get the Curia glyph, and at 100% you get the Curia statuette decoration for your orbiter. The inbox messages granting these rewards are some small poems by the mysterious old...
I don't remember why I did this instead of just finding a screenshot, because I did accidentally delete my inbox prior to 2020, and so I lost my Olmedi messages, but the fact that I put this gif here bewilders me to this day. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking.
Medi, who hasn't really shown up in the game at all outside of the Curia messages. Upon completion of the Chains of Hero quest, this jump scare has a small chance to occur whenever the player returns to their orbiter. A version of the player's operator will be performing some action somewhere around their ship, but with only whites for eyes, whispering, "Hey kiddo," whenever the player spots them. Based on dialogue from The War Within and the events of Albrecht and Trotti's story, it has been concluded that this is in fact the Man in the Wall manifesting in the player's ship for a brief time. I myself have kinda grown numb to this scare, but early on, it'll get you every now and again.
It's interesting, too, because now the voice actor for that jump scare is different. They changed the, operator voice actors. I think it was around when Duviri came out, or maybe it was when the new war came out. But yeah, the acting for that's different now, which is makes me a little bit sad because, you know, it's so iconic. Same with like the Stalker, right? After Gianni started doing it, the old lines were so iconic, but it is what it is, right? Not the end of the world.
While in the Enrichment Lab's location on the Orb Valis, hacking the console in the back of the facility has a small chance to release the sentient trapped within the glass there. This sentient will then attack the player and the Corpus alike. There's honestly a ton of cool stuff within the Enrichment Labs, like the fish containers, or these Verminks hamming it up, or the weapons testing room, but the sentient is the only one of these little secrets that really impacts gameplay.
I have to give my huge thanks to that really gross guy for getting it on camera. To this day, I have only ever had the sentient encounter one time. I have never been able to replicate it. I don't know how rare it is, but it has to be pretty goddamn rare.
Prior to the mining rework that launched in the Fortuna update, mining on the plains of Eidolon involved tracing the outline of an ore node with the mining tool, granting you more resources based on how accurate your tracing was. This allowed players to draw short-lived art pieces with the mining tool, and while I don't have any footage of myself doing it before it was removed, drawing dicks in public lobbies was a good time, I assure you.
I did actually find a year or two ago now, I found old screenshots of me and Nick doing it, my cousin Nick, but I don't know if I'd be able to dig them up, at least for this video, but they were pretty funny just to see, like, I don't know, dude, the Plains was such a fun update. I remember staying up very late on school nights when I was in high school to, explore the plains of Eidolon. I have a lot of fond memories of that update.
On the Corpus Gas City tile set present on Jupiter, special red doors can be found in certain rooms throughout the mission. These doors will have up to 4 symbols on them, these symbols being a triangle, a half circle, a hollow square, and a bold square. By destroying a hidden object in the room, called an access controller, panels will open around the room revealing buttons that correspond with the symbols on the door. By pressing these buttons in the correct order, being from top to bottom on the door in the allotted amount of time, the red door will open.
I would say this footage isn't really necessary to watch, it's just me opening it. Well, I think up to this point. But this is still one of my favorite things they've ever added to the game. Gas City is probably my favorite tile set in the entire game, and these Easter eggs are really, really awesome.
This reveals a purple corpus locker that contains a Gas City Captura scene, as well as a second door that looks into an amalgam laboratory. By using the amp and operator form, this door can actually be opened, revealing special modifications made to the tile set's normal amalgam enemies. These include the amalgam phase Moa and the amalgam Arca Kumikats, among others.
That's
in
not
this
even
lab,
how
there
you
will
say
be a
it.
special corpus enemy, the Vapus Researcher, and another purple corpus locker, which contains the same rewards as the first.
Really cool that they have unique enemy variations in them. I think that Naira, when you fight her, also spawns the like special amalgam variants. But I always thought it was really neat that they had these special, like, other, you know, alternate forms of these enemies that only appeared in this, like, Easter egg room.
An old-era Warframe YouTuber who made fast-paced and upbeat Warframe content. I never watched him myself, but according to comments left on the original Warframe Iceberg post, he left YouTube after being offered a job as a radio person and hasn't been seen around the community since.
Yeah, so I never really watched AKA Mike B, so I was kind of shocked to even hear that he was a person that existed.
During Developer Livestream 3, the game's creative director, D.E. Steve, wore a pair of pink shorts. The community, as it does, ran with it, spawning a meme that ended up leading to a pink shorts glyph being added in-game and the pink shorts message being shown during Platinum Prize giveaways on developer live streams.
I don't think they even still show pink shorts during Platinum draws anymore. That's kind of sad. What the fuck? How did I...
Hey, Editing Room Cool Kid here.
Okay.
While making this video, I decided to add this entry, so I'm sorry for the abrupt quality change again. In the current game, alternate helmets are nothing more than cosmetic, with arcanes being a completely separate category of items not tied to fashion in any way. However, in the past you could acquire items known as arcane helmets, which would give you a minor stat boost at the cost of a minor loss to another stat. These are no longer obtainable, but those who had them prior to their removal got to keep them, so you can still rarely see these in action even today.
I think, if memory serves, not only are arcane helmets tradable, but I actually own one because there was a bug one weekend where, I guess it was for about a week, Nora Knight accidentally brought an arcane helmet for Ash. I think it was the Scorpion helmet. So because of that mistake, I own an arcane helmet. I imagine a few people, maybe some of you watching, bought it back then. Not a thing anymore, unfortunately, but it was pretty cool when it happened.
Stamina was a mechanic of Parkour 1.0 that limited the player's ability to use maneuvers and melee attacks by giving them a stamina bar to manage. With Parkour 2.0's release,
this quality's so ass, what the fuck?
in Update 17, stamina was removed from the game entirely as it was cumbersome and really annoying. Except for when it came back on Necromex. Wait, what the fuck?
It's funny, if you listen close, you can actually hear my dog breathing when I do this joke.
Except for when it came back on Necromex. Wait, what the fuck?
It's funny, a lot of people criticized, rightfully so, honestly, that I didn't say the names of the entries, but with the way I had this structured, it just was really weird sounding. So, still feel like I should have. Why does it just say null about my volume meter? What the fuck? Anyways, I still think I should have, like, figured out, but the repetitive music stingers, I can see how that got annoying. An event involving quite possibly the most infamous leveling node to ever exist, Viver on Eris. The YouTube channel Quite Shallow has a fantastic video on this, but I'll give the abridged version here. Essentially, when syndicates were added with Update 15, reputation gain was initially extremely slow, sometimes even in the double digits per mission. This prompted players to look for a better way to power grind syndicate standing, leading to the discovery of a tactic involving the Viver interception node on Eris. Essentially, by using Excalibur's Radial Javelin, Mag's Shield Polarize, and Trinity's Energy Vampire, players could farm the node and earn syndicate standing at an insane rate. This led to the 3 Warframe abilities in question being nerfed, only operating with line of sight in Update 15.2. This caused outrage across the community, as this change not only failed to address the broken syndicate standing gain, and thus why players were using Viver in the first place, but it also affected players who never used Viver to farm. These changes were swiftly reverted, with DE Steve himself apologizing for the knee-jerk reaction, and syndicate rep gain was increased. This event ultimately led to Viver's removal, massive changes to the syndicate and interception missions, and the eventual rework of the Excalibur Warframe. I'm pretty sure as well that Radial Javelin ended up becoming a line of sight anyways, because it is in the modern state of the game, so that's kind of funny. Ever since the addition of daily login rewards with Update 18, players have noticed that taking long breaks from the game seems to increase the odds of receiving a platinum discount as a daily tribute upon logging in. While more or less accepted as a fact by the community, this theory has never been officially proven by Digital Extremes. It's honestly weird too, because, like, not only that, but I swear to God, if you, like, it's weird, Idan has gotten, like, a dozen of these. Like, I shit you not, I think Idan's account has over 50,000 platinum. Because he got, like, fucking 10 plus of these in a very short span of time. Like, I get one of these every few years, and yet Idan got them back to back to back in a pretty short span, so who knows at this point. This theory involves Quill Onko, a character in the town of Cetus on Earth. Certain lines from Onko imply both the existence of other universes and Onko's awareness of said universes. You can listen to some of the lines in question now. It's really funny to think about the fact that this was before the New War and before Eternalism. So, like, now, yeah, this entry is just, that's just how it works, right? We know that there are other timelines, but at the time this was made, that was not really well known, and Onko was kind of just foreshadowing it.
Time is relative. Choose when ready. The choice is made. We are here. You were anticipated. Our interaction begins. We are each one viewpoint within the myriad that comprises the Unum. Eidolon Siet Swong intercepted at isolate node Sad by Tenno Sad Park. But first, interaction. Mercury, Pantheon. Actor, Swong half point hash Swong. Impending intersection with actor Hafsir Point Sad. Outcome unclear. Quill Oban Nua Primary Observant Relay. There are plenty of implications from this dialogue, but I don't think we have too much time in this video to go over all of them. Something very interesting that I do want to talk about, though, is the other quills that Onko mentions. Will we encounter these agents of the Unum in the future? Only time will tell. Or maybe the whole plot was dropped like all these other ones. I honestly have no idea. It's funny too, because, like, looking at this list, I guess several of these weren't necessarily dropped. The Arcane Machine was just abandoned. We just never really brought that up ever again. The Myconians, arguably, their arc is finished. Same with Cephalon Hunhao. But Mutilist Alad V is an arc that actually did conclude. It's just that it's not in-game anymore, which is incredibly confusing. There is a surprising amount of in-game evidence implying that Dark Sector is actually a prequel to Warframe. This would cause a shit ton of plot holes in both games if it was actually canon, but the theory is fun on its face. Evidence for this includes the Excalibur Proto-Armor skin, along with its description, the Glaive Proto skin, which resembles the Glaive from Dark Sector, the Nyx Nemesis skin, resembling the Nemesis from Dark Sector, the Technocyte being the name of the biomechanical disease in both games, a prototype Jackal and prototype Grenier being present in Dark Sector, and so on. Like I said,
Officially confirmed, this would shoot both games full of holes, but the implication is certainly interesting regardless.
It has been confirmed at this point in time that Dark Sector is not a prequel to Warframe. That has been officially stated.
Prior to Update 14, Loki was one of the 3 starter Warframes alongside Mag and Excalibur. He was later deemed too difficult for new players to utilize as his skills were only suited to certain mission types, and he was swapped out for Volt with the release of the aforementioned Update 14.
I just realized, hold on, Polarize used to be Mag's second ability, and Magnetize was her third? What the fuck? I didn't actually know that until looking at this. That's
Volt
weird.
With the release of the aforementioned Update 14. Way back in the day, self-revives were limited to 4 per day per player, and eventually per Warframe, with a small platinum fee to recharge beyond that. This was eventually overhauled to be 4 revives per mission, and then changed again so that additional platinum costs were removed. Self-revives these days are 4 per mission and cost a small amount of the affinity that was earned in mission in order to use. This can also be boosted up to 6 revives per mission with the use of 2 maxed out arcanes placed on the Warframe.
What a... Dude... Revives for Plat, if I could pause this video, Revives for Plat was such a dog shit system. I'm so glad it's gone. Playing solo back in 2014 when I started on Xbox was an actual nightmare because of that shit.
During the Warframe Christmas event in 2013, the background of the Arsenal screen showed snow. Because at the time, the Arsenal screen was the foreground over just a shot of space, it was snowing in space. This also has a more modern example in the weird white particles that can appear in Arcwing missions, which could be interpreted as snow somehow ending up in space. Prior to Update 11, Warframe's damage system used a completely different model, now known as Damage 1.0. This featured some elemental types not seen today, such as Force Field and Laser, and also lacked features such as combo elements and orange critical hits. It was replaced with the modern Damage 2.0 system later on, which has become a mainstay in the game ever since.
It's funny too, because looking at this chart, right? A lot of things are different now, aside from Warframe Revised, which I think was out at the time that I made this video. But aside from Warframe Revised, giving us stat counts beyond 1 and things like that. Because for those who don't know, a lot of status effects you could only get 1 stack of. Like Viral had 1 stack that halved the enemy's HP, and that was it. So Warframe Revised helped with that a lot. But also you might notice, I don't know how well you can see my mouse, but you might notice like Ballistic, Plasma, Particle, Frost, Ionic, Incendiary, and Chem. Those were names for Railjack exclusive status effects. Those are not a thing anymore, fortunately. Like, the status effects still have unique properties in Railjack, but the individual, unique names for them are gone, which, I mean, it's kind of sad, because, like, particle damage is kind of funny sounding to me, but at the same time, I get it. And if you look as well, like, some of the icons they made for these are really cool. Like, I feel like Ionic damage, Incendiary, like, these are kind of cool icons. I hope that these get repurposed in some capacity.
System later on, which has become a mainstay in the game ever since.
Ah, the classic.
After the addition of the power donation aura in Update 23.10, a bug was found that allowed players to increase their ability strength to monstrous levels. Essentially, when equipping and then unequipping an Arcwing in the plains of Eidolon, the negative power strength would continuously stack. By then, linking to a Nidus, also affected by the bug, the 2 negatives would multiply into a positive, leading to absurd power strength values. The video in the background was provided by Xanagoth, and I highly recommend you watch his video where he plays around with the bug. Not only is it hilarious, but he goes much more in depth about the bug and its effects in the description.
Just interrupting myself, I genuinely think this is the most incredible bug to ever make its way into Warframe. The power donation bug has actually re-emerged multiple times. There was a bug where it came back in Railjack specifically. If you left and re-entered a mission, it would stack the power donation negative like it used to on the plains. And then there was another form of its return. Yeah, when Fortified Will came out, and Fortified Will had no cap. So if you use it, that's a decree. I should probably mention that's the decree where more armor gives you more strength. It had no cap. So there was a problem where if you used abilities that boosted your armor, it would scale forever.
Interestingly, this bug appeared briefly again with the introduction of Railjack, as spam entering the free flight node and then leaving it could stack the negative power strength like before. This was swiftly patched though. This one is just a reference to the game's busted-ass physics doing shit like this. Yeah, that was added in post-entry. I really should have put more effort into that one. Sometimes when returning to the orbiter, the game will fail to load the proper item being constructed in the foundry, instead defaulting to the Meyer melee weapon. Oftentimes this is quickly fixed once the game catches up, but sometimes Meyer will just get stuck until the player leaves the orbiter and returns. This bug also occurs when visiting another player's orbiter if they have an item in their foundry. I think that's still the case. I'd have to check though. This is a reference to a bug wherein the game's pathing occasionally messes up and displays the actual path to an item name or line of text instead of the actual item name or line of text. It doesn't affect gameplay in any way, but it's kind of funny to see. This is way too far down on the iceberg. During the Game Awards in 2016, community manager D.E. Rebecca almost let this line slip on stage when talking about the Warframe community.
Yeah, I mean, we have 26 million registered users, which is crazy to say out loud.
As you might expect, this is now widely accepted as a harsh truth. Yeah. It's listen, way too. We're over halfway through the video in the 4th tier. That was way too far down. By inputting special credentials on the Warframe login page, players can access 2 secret minigames, Happy Zephyr and Wormius. To access Happy Zephyr, the player must type Flappy into the email. Oh my god, this was recorded during Orphix Venom? I didn't even really think about that. That was, yeah, very start of 2021, I think. I think that's right, that it was very start of 2021. Zephyr and Wormius. I just realized I can see the date in the bottom left. Yeah, December 22nd of 2020 was when this update came out. Page, players can access 2 secret minigames, Happy Zephyr and Wormius. To access Happy Zephyr, the player must type Flappy into the email slot and leave the password field blank. For Wormius, simply type Wormius into the email field and leave the password blank again. In a later update, these could also be accessed by pressing a W button present in the Customization tab for both Zephyr and Wyrm respectively, including their Prime versions. These games also both got moved to the in-game arcade, known as the Ludoplex, purchasable from Cephalon Samaris. However, both games are still accessible through the previously mentioned methods, even if the Ludoplex versions of the games are not owned. I remember I've beaten Wormius, and every time I bring that up to people on stream, everyone's surprised that you can actually do that. Because, like, there is an ending to Wormius. You even get a poster for it. I don't have the strength to get the 50 consecutive jumps for Happy Zephyr, though. I fucking hate Happy Zephyr. I didn't actually participate in this ARG, so all of what I'm going to say here is going to be secondhand and taken from the Warframe wiki. Essentially, in the lead up to the launch of the Fortuna update, an alternate reality game was held by DE to introduce players to many of Fortuna's upcoming characters and lore. The ARG was directed by none other than the business, and used Discord and Twitter to communicate with players. The ARG involves solving puzzles to unlock in-game lore and rewards, using the hashtag LiftTogether on Twitter to communicate with Biz. While originally only limited to a few players by using limited-time Discord invites, a permanent link was eventually generated, allowing any number of players to participate. The Orican Archives has a whole page dedicated to recapping this ARG, which I will leave in the description for those interested. I'll just pitch this to the few of you watching this now, just get an idea, but I've thought about doing videos covering Warframe's ARGs, because this wasn't the only one. I failed to mention it here, but there was kind of an extension with, like, a Buried Debts ARG. That one was really cool, too, because you had, like, different YouTubers were sent screenshots of the locations of different hash codes around the Valis. You can still find these today, by the way. People had to go and scan them, and as the community scanned them, we made progress towards an overall goal. But
since this video came out, there were two more really big ARGs, those being the one for the Zeraman and the one for 1999. I didn't follow the Zeraman one too closely when it was happening, but I did follow the 1999 one in like the last couple weeks it was around. And I think it would be really fun to make videos recapping them. I just don't know if I could do it well. So, I mean, let me know if you've gotten to this point. Let me know if you would like to see a video about that kind of subject. I think it could be interesting. The desert skate. I don't really want to give this entry any more time than it's worth, so I'm going to be brief. He was essentially a Warframe news YouTuber who got banned after getting into drama with a much bigger YouTuber, being Mogamu. A lot of evidence came out of him being manipulative to his audience, exploiting the game, and just being a pretty unsavory person. Eventually, DE stepped in and banned him, which was probably the most controversial ban in the game's history, as many people felt that he didn't actually break any rules and was simply being banned to make the drama go away. This elevated things and led to the hashtag FreeRevXDev, which as hashtags do ultimately did nothing. Whether or not you agree with the ban, I think those of us that remember this shitshow are just glad it's over these days. Yeah, I didn't go as in-depth on that entry as I probably should have, because I genuinely just thought the drama was so stupid and such a mess, I didn't want to talk about it more in depth. There's a lot of stuff surrounding RevXDev that I probably could have talked about, and realistically probably should have talked about, but a lot of the community drama entries I just didn't like talking about, so I didn't really go in-depth as I should have. VoidGlitch was a data miner who was known for posting leaks and in-game drop rates on his site known as VoidGlitch's repository. Prior to the release of the Plains of Eidolon, data miners managed to cheat Excalibur Umbra into the game pre-release, causing the practice as a whole to be condemned by DE. VoidGlitch was given a cease and desist, demanding he take down his repository, threatening legal action if he didn't comply. This was hugely controversial because at the time, VoidGlitch was only 18. I'll leave a link to Brozyme's video in the description where he covers the situation in more detail, but that's the gist of it. Data mining is still very much around these days, but it is not nearly as public or prevalent as it was pre-Plains of Eidolon. It's interesting too, this entry is not entirely accurate for a couple of reasons. One, yes, Excalibur Umbra was cheated into the game, but the real reason that the fist, DE's fist came down on data mining was because the entire sacrifice script got leaked. And the sacrifice was an update that had been hyped up for multiple years at this point. But even beyond that, VoidGlitch receiving a cease and desist was really controversial because people went on about how VoidGlitch was just a kid. I think that I feel like it's weird to me to say this, but first of all, VoidGlitch was 18, was freshly an adult, so it's not like it's entirely fair to act like he was like a 30-year-old, but even beyond that, the cease and desist was the wrong way to go about it for sure, but I feel like people also act like DE like filed a lawsuit or something. Like, the cease and desist is just a legal notice. It's not like it was so serious that like VoidGlitch, was like financially destroyed by it or something. Like, I still think it was the wrong way to go about the situation, don't get me wrong, but I feel like a lot of people kind of overblew how big of a deal it was that was specifically the avenue they took, and I'm pretty sure Rebecca ultimately went on to apologize, admitting it was the wrong way to do things. Ignis Day was a community artist who created 9 of the game's deluxe skins, including Oberon Feyarch, Magnuma, and Trinity Strega. He also designed the original Ember Deluxe skin, however DE made large changes to the skin for performance reasons, causing Ignis Day to get very upset and eventually burn the bridges that connected him to DE. In the background you can see his original apology post on the Warframe forums. We never got Ignis Day's version of the Ember Deluxe, instead getting the Ember Vermilion skin. These days, artists Liger and Izuka creates most of the game's deluxe skins. I honestly wonder what Ignis Day is up to these days. Telluric was a former chat moderator for the game, who went on a rampage banning people from chat for various reasons. He was eventually removed from the mod program and went berserk on Twitter before apologizing on the forums. The YouTuber Retalius has a great video and a much more in-depth video on this subject, and I'm honestly just gonna gloss over it here because I'm kinda sick of the drama shit at this point. Yeah, like I said, I didn't really like doing those entries. I actually remember when Telluric's rampage happened, though. I'd spoken with him before, weirdly enough. in region chat. So it was kind of crazy to witness.
Great Prime was an improved version of the normal grate that falls from air vents when entering missions on certain tile sets. It was available on April 1st, 2014 for 1 minute after logging in for the price of 9,001 Platinum. It possesses 3 unique mods that add new effects to the mission entry animation, and allegedly only one person was ever able to actually acquire the item. Or at least, that's what the wiki would like you to believe. In reality, this item doesn't actually exist anywhere in the game's code, and was just a joke from DE that the Warframe wiki played into its own article. I highly recommend you read the original Warframe wiki article, though.
Why did I do this effect of it spitting? This is kind of nauseating.
Fun time all around.
Fucking hell.
In the track This Is What You Are, a female singer can be heard, followed by a choir of children. However, in the track Apostate, the female singer is absent, leaving a disorganized children's choir calling out for their mother. This is a reference to the abandonment of the Tenno by the Lotus and the quest Apostasy Prologue, and is a neat and very well-thought Easter egg connecting the two songs and their respective moments in the story.
Warframe has done a lot of really cool stuff like that ever since. In Core Containment, which is one of the tracks for 1999, is the one that plays for the majority, but that was the email notification thing again, sorry. When you're playing through the part where you have to stop the reactor core meltdown, there are distorted lyrics from other songs like The Call and The Great Despair that play in there to sort of help contribute to the idea that you're witnessing something that's distorted and wrong. And I think they really nailed that effect with that in the music. So there's a lot of cool stuff like that in the soundtrack. I just think that Apostate and This Is What You Are a really strong example of that.
When the reveal trailer for the Duviri Paradox was released, a lot of people thought that the adult male seen in the trailer was Dark Sector protagonist Hayden Tenno. This was disproven by DE Jeff in a developer livestream.
It's funny because Duviri Paradox, a great update. I love it a lot. Nothing like what we saw back then.
Back during the closed beta of the game, Warframe abilities were actually considered mods and had their own special slots and mod cards. They could be removed to increase the player's total mod space, however this mechanic was eventually removed in favor of a more streamlined experience. As a fun fact, there was actually a point in time where Warframes only had 3 abilities, but this was changed to 4 quite early in development.
I don't actually know if that was ever confirmed. I remember reading that on the wiki, but I don't know if I was ever shown actual proof that Warframes only had 3 abilities.
Initially exposed by YouTuber Tactical Potato, the Riven Mafia was a group of players who dominated the in-game Riven mod market under the clan the Riven Dealers. They were known for cornering the Riven market and scamming players by dominating the market and skyrocketing Riven prices. They found themselves in the public eye after taking down the bots used by Warframe community site Semlar and its Riven trading and prices sections, which were valuable resources in determining Riven prices and consequently hurting the ability of the Mafia to scam players. This attack was done by a user called the Faceless Dealer, who went on a huge ego trip over Discord before getting banned.
Okay, something really funny about this. This screenshot, I think if memory serves, this is legitimate, that Faceless did, that this is from the actual Faceless. But the Discord stuff, as far as I'm aware, was all actually someone who impersonated Faceless, which I think I bring up here in a second. But someone in the comments alleges that they were actually the person who was impersonating Faceless, and that when they watched this video, they laughed their ass off seeing all of that stuff again, because they were just trolling people. And if true, that's fucking hilarious.
Except for that apparently, the person who reached out to Semlar and gloated over Discord about the bot bans was an impersonator of Faceless, and it was the imposter that got banned? What the fuck? Honestly, this is just a great example of how off-the-wall insane the Warframe community can get sometimes, as if the previous entries on this list weren't enough proof of that. I'll drop a link to Tactical Potato's video in the description if you want to look into the situation more. It's really fucking weird.
God, this shit was so funny.
The Requiem mods used to kill Kuva Liches actually have more meaning than just Lich hunting. By leveling up in the Entradi and Necroloid syndicates, the player will unlock the story of Albrecht Entradi, the first Orokin to access the Void, along with the true meaning of each Requiem. See, he finally came back. Took us a pretty damn long time though, didn't it? At the
one moment, fucking accidentally unplugged my headphones. We must briefly stop the video so I can reconnect these. I want this to go in one continuous take, so I don't have to re-export and encode this. So I'm sorry if this stays in the video. At the end of the story, Albrecht recites the full poem from the descriptions of each Requiem mod, which is both a cool touch and also helps to illustrate Albrecht losing his fucking marbles. If you haven't leveled up through those syndicates in-game, and don't mind the spoilers, I highly recommend listening to the story of Albrecht yourself, as it's a great listen. I'll drop a link in the description if you care.
To cosmic madness, laws submit.
Featured in the Warframe Ghouls comic series, the Erogia Medica is an ancient Orokin device that is being sought out by Captain Vor in an attempt to cure the clone rot of the Grineer. As far as I'm aware, the device has not and will not appear in-game. Similar to the power donation bug, spamming the free flight node would allow you to duplicate certain companions and Warframe ability spawns. This wasn't very practical as it would actually break enemy spawns and render missions completely undoable, but it wouldn't break ram sled spawns, allowing me to capture this legendary footage of a metric fuckton of rumblers kicking some unsuspecting Grineer ass. To my knowledge, this bug was patched, which is honestly tragic because this shit was super fun, but all good things must come to an end. This is another one of my favorite bugs to ever make it into Warframe. This shit was so funny. This entry, this one still haunts me to this day, because I feel like I covered it so poorly, which is something, like, obviously, listen, I was 19, I didn't really understand fully, I feel like, what I was talking about at the time, but this will make more sense as this progresses, I guess. This was a super weird situation where referring to the Warframe Ninja as a trap in region chat would get you chat banned. This ended up getting so bad that even just linking Nezha and the kinetic siphon trap item in chat at the same time would get you banned. There was a bunch of other drama regarding this on Twitter, but I'm kinda over that shit at this point. While the nonsense with this has since died, I will forever have a tribute to it in my orbiter, as watching huge waves of people get banned from region chat will always be some of the funniest shit I have ever witnessed in a video game. I want something that, other than just, I feel like I said, I don't think I handled this entry terribly well in terms of, like, the, era that it should have been, because especially at the time, the use of, that word as like a transphobic slur wasn't nearly as common. So, like, nowadays it's pretty widely accepted, but back at the time it was still mostly used to, like, it was mostly still like an anime trope term. So that was what I had known it as. A lot of people, like, got mad at me for covering this entry at all. Especially with this little tribute that I still have in my orbiter, which I never thought the meme was that funny. Honestly, I thought it was kind of stupid, but watching people get banned for it was really funny, which is why this is here. But I don't feel like I covered the entry terribly well, and I ultimately still very much regret that. But some people, their reaction to the way I covered this entry was insane. Like, I've mentioned this many times before, but there is a comment that the person who posted it was a total coward and deleted it, so I only got to read, like, the first sentence or two, because YouTube notified me I had received a comment and I could see the first couple sentences from before they deleted it. And they were accusing me of being a pedophile for covering this entry, which I'm honestly like, that is so insane that it wrapped around into being funny, and I'm mad that I never actually got to read the full comment, because what the fuck was he talking about? Several other people got mad at me for, like, covering this in general, for, saying things like that word kills people, which I want to make something very clear. Words do not kill people. That's not how it works. I'm not saying you can't bully someone into killing themselves. That's very much a thing, and I don't want to discount that. But, like, accusing me of somehow, like, promoting violence or something by covering this entry is fucking ridiculous, but that's something some people did do. So overall, this entry is just a shit show. I wish I would have handled it with more care, and it's, I don't know, live and learn kind of thing. Back during the closed beta, the game's introduction took place in an empty white room, with the Lotus instructing the player on basic maneuvers and mechanics as they wandered around the small space. This was eventually replaced with the Cryopod intro, which has since been replaced with the current Ostron Town intro. During Halloween of 2013, the Lotus's transmissions depicted her as a vampire. To my knowledge, this was never done again, but it's a fun piece of history nonetheless.
Also worth noting that D.E. Rebecca, the voice actress for this character, is into vampires, so there might be a correlation there.
Yeah, so not only is Reb definitely a teratophile and wants to fuck every monster under the sun. Okay, I can't keep a straight face when I make that joke. Vampire Lotus is back now, though. During Naboris, I think last year, they brought this back as a Lotus customization, which is really cool. Fun throwback.
Hey, Editing Cool Kid here again. While making this video, I forgot to talk about Solar Rail PvP during my original recording session because I'm stupid. Basically, back in the day,
Part of why I think I sound so weird in these edited on segments, if memory serves, is because I am using my headset mic. Now that I think about it, I don't think I got to borrow my brother's mic again. I think this was on my headset mic.
clans could take control of locations around the star chart called dark sectors. I know that's confusing because of the game, but bear with me. These sectors were controlled after a clan or alliance deployed a solar rail to that area, and clans could engage in PvP fights over these rails in order to vie for the boons of controlling a given dark sector. This was removed with the inclusion of Armistice, and to this day, much of the Orican Dojo lab is now completely worthless. Alright, back to the abruptly higher quality microphone.
Yeah, that seals it for me. I did this on my headset mic for sure. I remember participating in these back in the day very briefly. It was honestly a cool concept, the Solar Rail PvP, but really just didn't shake out with how the game, ended up being played. It's kind of sad too, because there's a lot of clan mastery, like different items give you clan mastery and increase your clan level, and there's a lot of it tied up in like the Spectre Legions and the Solar Rails that you just can't get anymore, which is unfortunate because you can't build them anymore. Nowadays, this is also way too low on the iceberg. At the time this was made, this was a lot more obscure, but ever since the release of Belly of the Beast and Brutus, this is not very obscure anymore.
Throughout Warframe levels, Cephalon fragments can spawn around the map. Scanning a given fragment 3 to 7 times will unlock a codex entry, with each in-game destination, with the exception of the Kuva Fortress, having anywhere from 2 to 3 entries to unlock. However, when viewing an entry in the codex, a faint static can be heard. Following this static with the mouse will eventually lead to the player hitting a secret node and getting a transmission from a character known as Orden Karis, the Beast of Bones. By listening to all of the fragment's bonus transmissions, the story of Orden and his eventual transformation into Ordis is told. I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested in the full story. These secret transmissions are actually present in a ton of lore entries, such as the Thousand-Year Fish on the Plains and the Mem fragments of the Valis, but I think the Cephalon fragment is the most notable, both for doing it first and for doing it so damn well.
Orden's story is rad as hell. I love that shit. I don't even remember what music I used for this. It's probably in the description somewhere, but...
In the original concepting stages for Warframe, many frames were planned to have other gender alternatives. Ember originally had a male counterpart named...
I just realized a cursed image. Look at this. Mark 1 Bratton, and it shows the Latron, and they're holding the old Burston. The Akleto here is also an Akbolto, and it's clipping right into their legs. That's so fun.
Frames were planned to have other gender alternatives. Ember originally had a male counterpart named Blaze, and Ash was originally a female early on. While this concept was scrapped pretty early, one female spin-off did actually make it into the game, being Nyx, who was originally the model for the female Excalibur.
Something to note on this entry, I would love, if we get more proto-frames in the future, I would love to get an Ember who's male and an Ash who's female. I think that would be awesome, as like a reference to the fact that this was how it was originally supposed to be. I think it'd be super cool if they made it so that there was a female Ash and a male Ember proto-frame. It's like a very ancient throwback.
In her Laverian entry, Lore Master Drusus explains that Avara was part of a squad that was permanently destroyed by an ancient beast known as the Myrmidon. Zaku, conversely, is made of 3 destroyed Warframes, the number of frames that were in Avara's squad and destroyed. This connection...
The default exposure in the Deimos Captura scene, along with all these particles, this looks horrible.
While enticing, is pretty easy to shoot down just using explanations from in the game. Grandmother explains that the frames that make up Zaku were destroyed during Void expeditions and not by the Myrmidon. A fun theory all the same, and one that might actually end up being true with a little bit of retcon work. This is another one of those entries that refers to two different things. In Dark Sector, the game's antagonists
The Russian fucking music, dude.
speak Russian and visually appear as a sort of proto-Grineer like I mentioned earlier. This also refers to how people thought that the Grineer language sounded too much like Russian after it was released. Either way, I decided to make this.
This not only was that really poorly sentence mixed, but this was the icon for Grattler Gang for a very long time. It's funny too, because like when I was first making the Iceberg, I realized my YouTube channel didn't have a unique profile picture. So I was looking around for one, and my problem that I was encountering was that anytime I thought I had a profile picture that would work, I realized that it wasn't unique, so other people could have it, and I didn't want that to be the case. So because I made this really shitty edit for this video, I just used that for like a year. But after the Ukraine war in 2022, I got a lot of comments like getting mad at me over this profile picture, because there was people here probably remember this, but on the internet there was a very large wave of like anything Russian or Russia adjacent was heavily scrutinized purely because it was Russian or Russian adjacent. So even though this has nothing to do with me being Russian or supporting Russia, and this was my profile picture for like a year before that point in time, people were still getting really mad at me over it and being like, why the fuck do you have a Russian flag in your profile picture? And if they did, any amount of research, it would be extremely easy to find out why, but that's not what YouTube commenters do. I'm guessing as I do this production commentary series, it's probably going to be a recurring theme that YouTube commenters are fairly stupid. But it did make me realize, like, this doesn't have anything to do with my channel. I should change it. So then I talked with Rose and got, the current profile picture, which I think was a much better idea in the long run. I think it's a very, very iconic little thing, and I like the way it came out a lot. But this was the icon for Grattler Gang for a long time. I just left it that way until very recently, because I couldn't find the image again, so I just used the front-facing Cool Kid, and I thought it was funny, so I just decided, you know what, front-facing Cool Kid is just going to be the icon for Grattler Gang from now on, because I think it's funnier, and also doesn't have the weird, like, Russian iconography that isn't particularly relevant to anything.
This refers to a really strange bug where sometimes a random Excalibur would appear in your equipment at the end of the mission. This has since been fixed with the new end of mission screen, but I'll never quite understand where the bug even came from. I mean, I get that Excalibur is the game's placeholder for most things, but what is it even placeholding in this instance?
Some people did comment with theories about that. I'd have to dig them up, but there were some suggestions for what it could be. But overall, oh, okay. Huh. I didn't realize that holding left click fast forwards on YouTube these days. That's what was doing that. Anyways, still a very weird bug to me. Like, even today, it's like, why the fuck did that happen?
During the 2013 Christmas event, the Grineer had reindeer antlers.
Very, very elaborate entry.
Sometimes, strange connection issues can result in some really fucked up weird.
This is my screenshot, actually. I think I still have this one saved on my Steam account. I love just the H up at the top with the white square.
Weird and generally just cursed things coming from opening a relic. I don't know if this has been fixed, as I don't run relics all that much these days, but it's still funny regardless. Also, in my humble opinion, the Silver Forma is also a cursed relic item. Why the fuck does that thing even exist?
These days, now that Silver Forma grant you 2 Forma blueprints, it's not nearly as bad, but yeah, for many years, the Silver Forma was a cursed relic item.
On the plains of Eidolon, the Eidolon Terrorist boss can normally only be active at night, retreating into a nearby body of water when the sun rises. However, there is a very rare bug where sometimes he'll just be roaming in broad daylight. To a Warframe novice, this image probably doesn't seem too odd, but to your average MR10 plus or so, this is extremely cursed.
True.
There are actually some cosmetic items in Warframe that can only be acquired from the Steam Community Marketplace, leading to some of the most rare and expensive Warframe skins in existence. I'll have a list of all these items on screen now. I actually own the Cyandanas because they're pretty cheap, but some of these are just fucking bananas. As a pseudo spin-off of this, the consoles have their own supporter packs with their own exclusive skins, and you can also get special cosmetic rewards for playing through Discord, but none of these are as obscure as the Steam Marketplace. The Steam Market, some of those items are actually so rare they're not even listed anymore. Like, I think the Tigress skin is just gone. Like, there's none even listed because it's so rare now. This was the sort of precursor to the Trapnesia entry. Back in 2014 or so, if you said the word Sconazilla in chat, you would get chat banned. This was because this is so poorly edited. I didn't even bother like masking this so that the sword would be behind. God, this production quality is so ass. Nazi is present in the middle of the word, which was picked up by the kickbot. This was changed pretty quickly, but it is I do not pass me. Do better. Another one of those irrationally fond memories of this game for me is especially because for a long time nobody actually knew why they were getting banned, so they would just get baited by other players into saying the word. Gonazilla was hilarious though. Like that, like I said, is the OG, like you get banned and don't know why thing, but I think it'll always be the funniest iteration of that because Gonazilla on its face was so innocuous. And people getting banned for it in droves was really fucking funny to watch. Historically, Digital Extremes has released some promo websites for updates coming to the game. These include the Sacrifice Update website and the Update 15 website, among others. I'm sorry, my email. I need to just, like, turn that shit off for these. My email notification sound keeps going off. While the Update 15 website is no longer up, you could actually input the Konami code on the website and get Great Prime to fly by your screen. You can actually still do this using the Internet Archive, and so I'll leave a link to that in the description if you want to play around with it. During the game's closed beta and some of the open beta, many bosses looked nothing like they do today. Captain Vor was a Red Butcher, Faye Heck wasn't a robot, Kayla Defame was a Ballista, and Pluto had a completely different boss in the way of Arnatina, whose transmission model was eventually repurposed and turned into Darvo. I'll leave a link to a video showing the evolution of these bosses in the description if you're interested. Honestly, a very interesting piece of Warframe history, especially because the, like, Forid and the Sergeant are, like, two surviving bosses of this era. I really hope that with the boss overhauls they're doing these days, I really hope that they change the Sergeant and Forid. Piggybacking off of the previous entry, the Grineer and Corpus didn't have unique tile sets during much of the game's closed beta and instead shared locations. During this time, the Grineer also used Tenno weapons in addition to the whole English-speaking thing that I mentioned earlier. And we're getting there. How long is this recording? An hour and 40 minutes. I'm sorry for everyone who watches this. This shit's probably going to be miserable to view. Shortly after Corrupted Vor was released, there was a small 1 in 100 or so chance that instead of Vor's normal spawn transmission, the transmission window would simply display a default Excalibur, who would say nothing and then leave a few moments after appearing. This led to the urban legend that Excalibur haunts the void, which has since died off, much to my sadness. Before the existence of the modern mod system, Warframes and weapons instead had skill trees. These were divided into two categories, being 15 normal upgrades and 30 supercharged upgrades on Warframes, with only 15 supercharged upgrades on weapons. These supercharged trees were only accessible after using the potatoes mentioned way earlier in this video. This was removed before the end of the closed beta in favor of mods. Interesting that there's a, due to eternalism, right? There's a timeline not too far from this one where this is what we got. I think mods are a better system, even though they do have their own issues, right? I wonder if this could be, like, a potential solution someday to have, like, instead of damage mods or crit, like, that kind of thing, to, like, ease up on mandatory mods, we could have skill trees for certain stats or, like, something like that, but I don't think it's ultimately a huge deal. We've gotten a lot more modding variety just because we've gotten a lot of items that are actually good in the game. Like, Primary Crux is a great example of finally dethroning the Steel Path Primary Arcanes from being, like, the only ones you'd ever slot in. But interesting how this could have turned out. That's basically what I'm saying. A A concept demo for Warframe/Dark Sector was released in 2005, showing off many of the concepts and characters that would eventually make their way into both Dark Sector and Warframe. There's some really cool proto-Warframe type stuff in this trailer, so I'll leave it in the description if you want to give it a watch. It's pretty enlightening, to say the least.
That demo is actually super cool, with obviously the sort of proto-Excalibur and Grineer and all that stuff, but Warframe could have been a very different game, and I do recommend if you haven't watched the trailer, it's in the description of this video, I'm pretty sure, giving it a look, because it is very educational in a weird way.
Remember how I told you to remember the old English-speaking Grineer and their memeable phrases? Yeah, that's finally relevant now. One of the many phrases that community members mocked during the closed beta was Combat Formation Bravo, leading many players to wonder what this combat formation was and if there were even any others. Eventually, a bug where Grineer troops would stack themselves vertically was dubbed as this mythical combat formation. There was a spin-off in Combat Formation Alpha where enemies would stack themselves horizontally behind cover, but it never reached the peak that CFB achieved. This, of course, isn't around anymore, part of some weird bugs every now and again, but we do have these screenshots to admire, so that counts for something.
I miss this. Combat Formation Bravo was before my time, admittedly, but the screenshots and stuff of it are so goddamn funny, and whenever I see an enemy bug out with another enemy on its head, because that does still happen sometimes, not like it used to, but I always freak the fuck out that Combat Formation Bravo is occurring.
The Oro is an enigmatic power possessed by both the Tenno and certain enemies in the game. According to Teshin, it prevents those who possess it from dying. Outside of being used in certain Conclave game modes, not much is known about the Oro, and it doesn't even really show up in-game at all. There is a theory that those exposed to the Void are granted the Oro, but considering the death of Rel in Chains of Harrow, this may not be the case. I personally think this was sort of a proto-Kuva from a story perspective, and eventually got dropped in favor of the Yuvan Theater, but I don't really know for sure.
Honestly, Oro is a very interesting lore thing. It kind of feels fairly abandoned, honestly, but I guess we'll have to see, because, like, the reveal of the second dream makes a lot of quests, like, namely hidden messages, make a lot less sense, and a justification from some people was that the Oro was involved in, like, the permanent death of certain Warframes, even though they were piloted by operators, but it's kind of difficult to say.
Warframe has often jokingly been mocked for its lack of endgame content, leading a lot of players to create their own endgame. The most popular of these is Fashion Frame, wherein players try to make their Warframes and equipment look as badass as possible. Not gonna lie, I kinda agree with this one, but it is sort of exclusive to the whales if you really want to get into it.
I'm surprised how persistent that meme has been. Fashion Frame as endgame has been a thing since I started playing in 2014, and it's still alive and well today.
Keystone, later renamed The Amazing Eternals, was an in-development multiplayer shooter game by Digital Extremes that eventually got cancelled. It was a class-based shooter that was shut down so the DE could focus more of its resources on Warframe because it was so much more successful. According to the Wikipedia article, the commercial failure of Lawbreakers and the overall disinterest in the game's closed beta and alpha contributed to the cancellation as well.
It's really sad, because, like, The Amazing Eternals and, honestly, Lawbreakers succumb to a phenomenon at this time that I like to call Overwatch syndrome, but, like, not in the sense that they were too much like Overwatch, but that people accused them of being Overwatch clones. Like, a lot of games at this time died because people thought they were clones of Overwatch and wouldn't give them the time of day. I've heard from people who played Keystone that it was actually really fun. A lot of people really enjoyed it, but like I said in the entry, the failure of Lawbreakers and the disinterest in it, partially because of the whole Overwatch effect, was what resulted in its cancellation. Weird take, I also really enjoyed Lawbreakers. I actually played that game in its alpha and beta phases, and I thought the game was super fun, but it came out for $30, which was a tough pill to swallow at the time for a multiplayer-only shooter game. And again, it's just Overwatch effect that people had. Because, like, not only did we lose Lawbreaker and Keystone to that, but, like, the Battleborn died to that despite being nothing like it. Gigantic, on some level, died to that despite being nothing like Overwatch. I feel like you could even contribute Paragon's death in some way to that effect, because people would constantly compare it to Overwatch when it was a fucking MOBA. So, really tragic, honestly. Like I said, I heard this game was really fun. This is so deep in the iceberg. I'm kind of surprised I put it this low.
Back when the Sergeant boss was still named Sergeant Neff Anyo, many people would mock the boss's name due to him literally just being a reskin capture target. Names like Derp Anyo and Nerf Anyo were popular, eventually culminating with the community concept for Derf Anyo, who was apparently Neff's nephew. He was officially revealed by DE on DevStream 30 as a support unit to accompany the soon-to-be reworked Sergeant. This rework was never released to my knowledge, and Derf has since fallen off the face of the system. Neff Anyo has been repurposed into a major story character, but he is currently not a boss fight, and the old Sergeant boss is still a total pushover. Derf's design appears to have inspired the Comba and Scrambus enemy types, but Derf himself has not appeared in-game. Hopefully sometime in the future this part of the video will be wrong, but we'll have to wait and see.
Dude, this video's 4 years old and it's still accurate. That's the worst part. I hate the Sergeant so much, man. Please rework him.
A bug that rarely appeared during the 2017-2018 era, a bunch of black squares would just appear on the player's screen pretty much at random, blocking vision. These squares would sometimes disappear when changing rooms or leaving the mission, but could require a full restart if my memory serves me right. These could still be in the game under certain circumstances, but I myself haven't encountered them in years, so, to my knowledge, this bug is busted.
It's funny because this bug absolutely is still in the game even now. One of the most common comments I received on this video, kind of surprisingly because this entry is so deep in, is I'm still experiencing this bug. Like, I feel like the meme with, like, Plankton, like, the all right, I get it. I have received hundreds of comments about this, and it's just like, damn, I shouldn't have said that.
As pointed out by Warframe lore channel Stallard, Corpus text and insignias reveal various houses that control different aspects of the Corpus, including robotics, manufacturing, and transportation. This is a pretty dense subject, so I'll leave Stallard's video in the description if you want to watch it. I highly recommend it though, it is super interesting, and I really hope DE fleshes this out more in the future, and that it doesn't go the way of the Arcane Machine.
Yeah, this has never been expanded on. I do love the Corpus Guild lore, though. It's very obscure, all things considered, but it's super interesting.
In an unmarked lake on the Orb Vallis, a strange third Orb Mother lies in wait. As a fun fact, you can actually use a K-drive to get out of bounds on the Vallis, and then clip through the floor to see the full body of the orb. It looks almost like a collaboration between the Corpus and the Grineer, which is pretty cool. While it is supposedly going to launch with the Corpus Queenpin release in 2021, this fucker has been sitting around since 2018, so my expectations are rather low.
I can't believe it. The amount of time since this thing showed up in the lake has doubled since this video came out, and it's still not out. I know they said on a dev stream that they have apparently been trying to work it into the release schedule every single year since it came out, and they never find the time for it. But like, I also think there's, to some extent, a problem of, like, if the third orb comes out, something major in the Fortuna story has to change. Because I'm pretty sure in the quest, Yutiko explains that the reason the Ostrons can't leave is because the Orb Mothers watch over them. So if we're able to kill all three, that would kind of necessitate a major change in the story for the Solaris. So aside from just probably not knowing what to do with this boss, I feel like there's also the issue for them of just, like, there's a major story event that would have to happen once this boss dies, and how that would be handled would have to be such a major update, I imagine, that they probably just don't want to deal with it. I really hope this thing does come out, though. It's a really cool looking thing, and I think that the other orb bosses are fairly good. I don't personally enjoy Prophet Taker that much, but I like Exploiter Orb, and I can't deny Prophet Taker is a good boss, even if I don't personally really like them. So I hope we do see something out of this guy eventually, but dude, it's been, what, 8 years, I think, since it was added? Something like that. No, it's been 6 or 7 years now. I can't do math. I think it's been 7 years since this guy was added. So my expectations are low. I'm pretty sure this thing has been in Warframe for over half of its life. No shit. And it's still never actually become an actual boss. This is an entry that we just know now.
After leveling all the way through the Entrati Syndicate, all of the Entrati family members have their names revealed, with the player even receiving their own Entrati name. However, the name of grandmother is never revealed, with her saying, "I know perfectly well who I am." The true nature of grandmother's name will likely remain unknown.
Yeah, we actually know her original name was Daggeth, and she gave it to Daggeth, the Warframe, in exchange for her life. So that was kind of interesting. Honestly, I was really like hyped when we got that lore about Daggeth because it was really cool to finally have an answer to that question. You know, what was it? 4 years later, I think it was 4 years after this update. So yeah, that was neat.
This gif of DE Steve from TennoCon 2018. Absolutely majestic.
That effect scared so many people. It's so funny because I got so many comments like, "You dick." Someone was even like, "Dude, I fell asleep to this video and that scared the fuck out of me." And it's funny because that was kind of the goal, but I didn't expect it to work so well. Yeah, I forgot there's just no transition stinger at this level because I thought it was more uncanny
While
that
at this
way.
point we're really just getting into shitpost territory, a lot of these are actually still rooted in truth, such as this one. Do you remember Liger Inuzuka, the deluxe skin artist who replaced Ignis Day from earlier? Before he was hired by DE, he apparently drew NSFW Warframe art. This isn't the only example of DE working with Rule 34 artists, but it is definitely the most high-profile one.
Just a quick correction. Liger is non-binary, so again, this is the same thing as like with Dim Dawn Official way back at the start of the video. I just am an idiot and make these types of mistakes in this video. I still do sometimes, but I've tried to be better about that.
Also, with characters like Wisp in the game, DE basically does just create Rule 34 themselves at this point.
This is one of my favorite joke entries on the original Iceberg.
I shit you not, this one actually has an explanation. As explained by Reddit user NilRimR, Jimmy invented transference in the first episode of the show when he brought his pants to life. Was Jimmy the first Orican? Maybe Sheen found the void in Planet Sheen and became the first Tenno? Was Carl the first Grineer? DE, please give a statement on this. I need to know.
None of this is very funny, but that joke was originally going to be a lot more elaborate. But if you look at the time, you know, the track down here, this is almost done, and I really just wanted to finish this video, so I just kind of gimped the joke a lot because I didn't care anymore.
This extremely cursed submission to the Warframe workshop, featuring the helmet of the Loki Warframe without the skin.
It's funny, Healed Loki is fucking ancient, but people still reference him somewhat often. Like, people in my streams bring him up from time to time. It's weird how much staying power this has had, but it doesn't, like, not make sense, because, like, this image is fucking horrible.
The do not research advice here is honestly valid.
Okay, there's a weird story tied to this one I'm gonna explain once it's over.
This relates to the 2005 concept demo from earlier, where a black woman is instructing the Tenno and seemingly serving the role of the Lotus. Whether or not the Lotus was originally planned to be African American is unknown, but obviously this didn't make it into the final product.
So, thing about this. Someone left a comment on this video getting really mad at me for using a particular phrase.
Instructing the Tenno and seemingly serving the role of the Lotus. Whether or not the Lotus was originally planned to be African American is
African American, that word that I used. Someone left this lengthy comment about how I was like afraid of the cancel mob and that I should have like just said that she was black. Listen to this.
This relates to the 2005 concept demo from earlier, where a black woman is
I literally say that. I literally refer to her as a black woman in the entry or in the sentence before I say that. And the person who left this comment getting mad at me for being like a coward to the woke mob or whatever the fuck was so like politics brain rotted. They didn't even realize that I had done the thing they were asking of me. Like in the original script, I actually, like I said earlier, I read out all the entry names. So using the word black to describe the Lotus 3 times in a row just was really weird. So I changed the word to African American just to keep it from being too repetitive. I do that kind of thing in my videos fairly often. When I'm revising scripts, I'll notice I have a word that doesn't really need to be there, or it's being repeated too much to the point where I notice it. So I'll change it to something else that's a synonym just so it kind of breaks things up. Whether or not I should have even done that for this is definitely debatable because, I mean, this is a space game. African American is probably not the most apt description because, you know, if America's even a thing anymore is up for debate, but that comment lives in my head rent-free, because it was so fucking dumb. African American is unknown, but this is another classic. The Xeneric symbol visually resembles an OWO, as in, oh whoa, what's this? This is another shitpost that I thought was really funny. This is kind of a spin-off of the Revive with Platinum entry from earlier, but apparently at one point you actually could buy Revive boosters with credits prior to their removal. I'm reasonably certain this is inaccurate and was just a psyop. I don't think this was ever actually the case. Or maybe not? I'm honestly not 100% sure on this because there's so many conflicting reports, but either way, shit's whack. Considering that the exclusivity and demand for Excalibur Prime led to the creation of Excalibur Umbra, it isn't too far of a stretch to theorize that the similar This joke is so... I'm pretty sure I make fun of myself for how low effort this is in a
demand
second.
and exclusivity regarding Great Prime may lead to a more widely available Great Umbra. Maybe this time, the damn thing might actually be in the game, too. Who knows?
Yeah. Mood. I agree, past me. This video does suck.
This is just a spin-off of the meme, every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized, from the Mario 64 Iceberg. See, this is why you should have watched Mishkaz's video first, now the joke doesn't make sense.
I can't believe it took over an hour for that to come up again.
Host migration occurs in Warframe when the host of a lobby disconnects or leaves, and the game assigns a new host for that lobby. This process is notoriously buggy, however, often completely dismantling squads, removing all acquired weapon and Warframe XP, and even in some very rare instances, straight up putting the player in a completely different squad on a completely different mission node. Likewise, an entity this powerful may be the true final boss of Warframe, which I imagine is only defeatable after Gera builds up 1 billion stacks of damage and destroys the game's servers with Splinter Storm. But for now, this is just a theory.
That was, honestly, I'm surprised. Like, that joke wasn't even that high effort, but was higher effort than I would have expected from myself with how done I was with this video by the time I got to this point. Like I said, a lot of the jokes for these gags just got cut short because I was just so tired of working on it. Like I said, after 5 months of effort, it was like, dude, I don't want to make this anymore.
When a Warframe account gets permabanned, it technically is only banned until January 1st of 2035. This has spawned the theory that all accounts will be deleted on this date, so that those who were banned will never get to play the game again, no matter the cost.
I honestly wonder if, like, when 2035 strikes, I wonder how many people will actually get unbanned. You guys think Noob Showtech will come back? That'd be crazy. This entry also should not have been the final one on the Iceberg. Like, I thought it was kind of funny to put it at the end, but this is such a common community meme. This should have been way higher. This should not have been this low. Worst placement on this video.
Ironically enough, lastly on this list, we have Primed Soon. A community meme involving how often DE says that certain updates and features will simply be released soon. As you can see on screen, the Prime version increases the duration of Soon by 120%. Maybe Derf would actually get added into the game if people stopped using this mod, but I doubt I can make everyone even take it off, so I'm not gonna try.
This is also interesting. There was no proper outro for this video, and a lot of these things that I thought of while working on it totally should have been in the video, but like I said, with borrowing my brother's mic at the time, I couldn't add them. Like, the writable orbs thing from when we first were learning about the Valis, Greedy Milk was a really huge meme at the time, right? Banned Zaw names. I think Sab had just recently gotten banned for his Zaws when I made this video. Old Draco, 1000% should have been an entry. I think Free Forma was in reference to the room on Lua, the Simon Says puzzle. Space Mom, obviously, is just what people call Rebecca. All of these should have been in the video. If it wasn't for the microphone restrictions, they would have been. Yeah, I just didn't record an outro for this for some reason. I did not. This video sucks ass. I'm gonna leave a dislike. I don't... Wait, what did that say? I remember that there was a joke like that. Hold on. It's like the last frame. Let me frame advance. Very slowly and carefully. Yeah, the open beta entry that was on the Iceberg about how the game is still in open beta. I think if I scroll down here,
There are a few extra entries here that I explain. Rare containers, the 10k form of Oban, a bunch of old holiday stuff. Some of these actually did come back, like the Jack O'Naught came back for an event. The Orican Dojo rooms, and I don't know. Like, fun fact, this video, if I scroll down, um, I hit the description character limit. Like, the description contains 5,000 characters. It's entirely impossible. I don't remember what this video is, but it's entirely impossible for me to add anything else because I wanted to add more, but there was just too much. And yeah, all of these different resources and sources in here from when I was working on the video that I had promised. This, like I said, was a shit ton of work. I think, I don't think I've made a video that was of quite this scale since. I'm working on one that I do think puts this into, like, contests the amount of work that this took. Because I'm working on making summons overpowered, which is going to be about 90 minutes long. Obviously, the passive tier list was really long, but the passive tier list was also easier to make than this because I spent like 3 weeks on the passive tier list, so it wasn't like it was easy, but at the same time, it was much more straightforward than developing something like this, right? So it wasn't as intensive in that regard. But like things like the Iceberg, I just don't know if I'd ever do something quite on this level again. And it took a shit ton out of me to make this video. I remember when it first came out, the Iceberg, like, yeah, just over 1 million views now, January 3rd of 2021. But when I first released it, it got like 2,000 views in its first week, and I was ecstatic. Was really happy to see that. And then all at once, it started to blow up, like up 2 months after its release, which is how I got monetized on this YouTube channel, because I had got my first 1,000 subs purely off this video. And why I started doing YouTube was because I felt like once I sort of, it's like the lightning in a bottle, right? I felt like I had to follow up off of it because it was going to be a disappointment to people who enjoyed this video, and it was going to be a waste of a big opportunity if I didn't follow up with something else. So it's crazy to me too. Having a 1 million view Warframe video is actually kind of rare. A lot of channels even bigger than me don't have something like this, so it's quite the achievement, even if it took about 4 years that this ever actually happened. Yeah, this video's fourth birthday was a couple months at the time of filming this, couple months ago, but uh, I know this was fairly disjointed and probably kind of grating to watch because I kept pausing and interrupting the video, but my hope is for future videos, like ones that I actually made on this computer, I'll be able to go through the timelines and show you guys things that are more in-depth. This was a lot less production commentary and more of just like me almost reacting to my own video, but this was made so long ago that there's like such mental distance between, like, watching this doesn't feel like I made it, if that makes sense, because it was such a long time ago that there's like a disconnect in my brain. Uh, Even things I made like a year ago, when I watch them, it doesn't feel like I made them, let alone 4 years ago. So the production of this is a little bit more lost on me, but I think that it would be best to start with the oldest videos and move towards the newest as I do this series. So I'll probably be doing the status tier list next, which will be an interesting one because I have a lot of things to say about how the game has changed since it came out. But let me all know if there, or let me, Jesus Christ, I cannot talk. I'm sorry. Speaking continuously for this long is hurting my brain. But if you all could let me know, if you would think that this format has any improvements that you would suggest, if you think I should keep doing these types of videos or anything like that, I'd appreciate it. I thought that this would be a fun thing for members to get a little bit more insight into my thoughts on the things I've made as time has passed and some insight into how they were made. In the future, again, I'll go through the timelines. I'll show you all more in-depth stuff about how things were made. But early on, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff like this, where it's just be kind of talking more generally about the videos that I made because there's such a disconnect in time from then to now, and I don't have the original project files anymore since I switched, to my desktop. But thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support as well. This will be a members only thing, so I very much appreciate if you can even see this, considering the fact that this is, the worst $5 you ever spent in your life. But thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this series, and I'll catch you all next time. See ya.